Here we go, Facebook. It's been a couple of weeks, I think, so good to be back. We're going to do a Monday market review today rather than do a mid-week market review. So yes, as I said, we're doing a Monday market review rather than a mid-week market review, and there's primarily a reason for this. So as you'll see here, we've had this consolidation. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this chart in here. I'm actually going to bring in two charts next to each other because then it's just a little bit easier to see the slightly longer term view on the left with the daily chart on the right. So on the right we got on right and the left we got the Dow futures, and I'm going to jump between this and the S&P because those of you who have seen these before, I tend to work to both. Now, what we've got is we've got a bit of fundamental news going on at the moment that could be or could stimulate a further move downside. Now, those that have followed me for a while, those that know how we operate at TSC, that we don't trade the news. Now, yes, we may get setups as a result of a certain type of news movement, and we will follow and track certain news announcements, but we don't try and predict what the news announcement will be and as a result what will happen to that. Now, obviously, those of you know as well that I am investing and long to medium term trading crypto. So I don't trade them through a leveraged account, but I am trading cryptos as well. Um, and I was discussing with a friend of mine some of the issues around one of the stable coins called Tether and some of the issues around whether or not some of its commercial paper assets were with a Chinese building company. And I was discussing this with my buddy when we were out on Saturday. And I've been doing a little bit more research on this. So there is a company out there, some of you may or may not have heard of it, called Evergrande. I don't know if that's exactly how it's pronounced, but it's Evergrande with an E on the end. And it's a Chinese building firm. So I've been looking at this, and I've never heard of them before because it's not something I pay attention to. But they're one of the biggest building firms in the world. They've basically geared themselves up to the hilt. They've got $305 billion worth of liabilities, and they've got a load of bond repayments due. Now, again, I'm not going to go into the details of how bonds work, but very simply, they've issued um, they've issued bonds to get money in. So they've borrowed a load of money, and the loan repayments on that, and probably other loans that they've got as well, are due this week, I believe. I think it's this week. I think it's Thursday this week. I think it's about $80 million worth of loan repayments, for sake of argument, that are due. There's rumours that they can't pay it. Employees were asked to forego bonuses, so they could actually. It was a case of, well, you've got to buy the bonds or you won't get your bonuses. There's all sorts of stories going around, but the bottom line is they're a massive, massive building firm with a lot of debt behind them. And I don't think it's going to create some sort of Lehman Brothers Part 2, but certainly a massive building company like that going bust would or potentially could have shockwaves around global indices. It could mean people start selling off. And again, what you can see here is we've had a little bit of a sell-off. So here's that trend line on the S&P. I'm going to compare that with the Dow. You can see the trend line there. So clearly what we've got is a break of that longer term trend line. You can see that both with the S&P and the Dow. Now the Dow is leading the way a bit here. You can see the Dow has taken out very simply its last lower high. Its last higher low, I should say. Its last higher low was 19th of August. We didn't make the new high here. So again, you can see we've been quite sideways. Now again, it doesn't mean that we're going to see a sell-off. So I'm not trying to pin this on absolute specifics saying, well, we haven't gone higher, so we're going to roll over. But you can see we have had a sell-off. We put in a bit of pressure around these lows and have broken those. You can see there's, if I just zoom in, there's Monday's and there's Friday's candle. So we were putting pressure on that. So the next port of call really is a retest of the June lows. We're close to a retest of the July lows. So I'd say actually the July lows are next. But what you'll notice is we've had that weekly close. We've actually had two weekly closes now below the weekly 21. That weekly 21 is flat. So in terms of lows and moving averages, I would say significant area would be here. So you've heard me talk about this on previous videos. If we were to roll over, we'd be looking at this area here. So it might be that we get a little bit of a sell-off as a result of where we are already. People could be selling off, being a bit cautious as a result of that news that we're hearing. If we go over to the S&P, difference with the S&P has broken the trend line, you can see here, but the S&P as yet is only just today coming into those August lows from the 19th of August and is only currently testing its weekly 21. So if we were to get a move down and get a close below that by the end of the week, again, the next area is that weekly 50 down here. So this could be where we get a little bit of a sell-off. You've got this element of what we call like a torch paper moment, where if something like this happens and that company goes bust, there's a lot of tensions. Obviously, there's still stuff going on with COVID. There's the debt issues and when they're going to have to raise the debt ceiling in the States. So there's a few things that are creating a little bit of uncertainty. And my point here is there's always these types of things. It's not like we don't have regular bits of uncertainty. We've just been through everything with COVID and we're still going through that. But it was just interesting that we've got this company here, issues around debt. So again, we can see what happens there. There's a few tensions going on in Europe. So again, I keep an eye on the news. I don't try and trade off it. I will be looking for certain setups if they occur. Some of our guys had a nice breakout trade here. I don't trade the breakout setups on that, but if we start to get a pullback and the right things happen, then I could be looking for further downside off this. So just bear that in mind. Dow Jones and S&P, you can see technically the Dow Jones has created a new low, lower than its last higher low. The S&P, you can see not quite the same, hasn't actually got below that low and is sitting on its 21. But I'm going to be keeping very close eyes on these, bearing in mind what I've just said about that news announcement. But I am not going to be trading purely off that speculatory scenario. So I'm seeing a lot of red today. If I just look across the watch list, I've got the DAX here. DAX has had that sell-off again. You can see that that's had a bit of a sell-off. That's had a retest of its July lows just there. So you can see that's happened there. NASDAQ, if we look at the NASDAQ, same idea here. We've got a couple of trend lines, a slightly longer term one. The more close trend line, again, look, we've had a test of the daily 50. That's a fair distance away from its weekly 21. So the NASDAQ, again, selling off. So all the major indices are in a bit of a sell-off here. FTSE's down 1%. So that's having a bit of a sell-off as well. That's a little bit more sideways, and that wasn't coming off highs, but the FTSE's had a little bit of a sell-off. So yeah, seeing plenty of red here. Oil's down slightly, but oil is closer to all-time highs. I'm going to go back to one chart so I can open things out a little bit more. So again, watching oil, we're looking for a retest at these highs. So we would have a very specific against the trend setup if we were to get a retest at these highs. So I'm watching to see if oil holds up here. The 21, daily 21 is coming to the daily 50. If this little bit holds up, we push back up, take these highs out. If we take these highs out, so the highs from July, I would expect a retest up at these highs here, which is not just the highs of 2021, that's also the 2018 highs from further back. I'd be looking for a retest there. I would be looking for short trades with that retest if we were to get that. At the moment, we're sitting a little bit in no man's land for me. Oil, we've had some lovely trades. We've had some great with the trend setups. We had a lovely reversal trade off these highs. And then we actually had one of our trend line break setups slap bang here that was a winner. So oil is, as I've said in other market commentaries, the gift that keeps on giving. We've had a good run on our monthly setups as well. So at the moment, oil is really sitting in no man's land here. This is really sideways. We're not up at resistance highs for a potential short against the trend, and we're not really in any downward momentum. So until oil was to get down out of this zone, I wouldn't be looking for further with the trend setups. This is all really sort of no man's land for me on oil there. So again, that's where oil is. Gold slightly up, but again, still in this very sideways move here. Silver's slightly up. Maybe that's a slight reaction to this potential news. But yeah, that's what we're seeing across the board. Euro's had a bit of a set-off. Just go and have a look at Euro. It's actually about even Stevens today. We had, you can just see there, this was one of our trendline break setups that has ended up being a loser. That's okay. So that's a loser. We've had a good run on that strategy, but yeah, this one was a loser here. And the only other position that I'm in at the moment is I'm in a long position on Aussie CAD that was about halfway to target, but it's got a little bit further to go there. So yeah, so that really is the main focus for this week's market review, is what is going on with this Chinese building company. Let's see what happens with the announcements, and let's see if that stimulates, or as a result, we get further sell-off on the main indices. And I will either get back to you next Monday or next Wednesday with a follow-up on where we are. And then as a result, it may mean we've got a couple of trades. If not, we'll see where we are. All right, safe trading, and I will catch up with you again very soon.